Samsargava Nalalida Loka Chanayataruna Ganaganatvam Naravasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Padija Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasutaharanga Bajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratan Mandiram Ajinado Yuktasya Bhaktam Sanjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadvana Driptan Hari Vakta Sangam Kitaiva Driptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvinda Samsaradava Nalalida Loka Chanayakaruna Ganaganatvam Taptasya Kayana Gunaravasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvinda Shiradikaman Havayura Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupanam Shiradikaman Havayura Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupanam Patikshana Swan Danalolupasya Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Bande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nikunja yuno ratike nisidai Jaya dibikti apekshanina Nikunja Tatalati daksha dati balabasya Mande gururshi charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Shakshadhari che Asamasta sastri Yuktastata bhavyavyatev sabi Shakshadhari To Prabhuya Priya Eva Tasya Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Yasha Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasha Prasada Nakatikatopi Yasha Prasada Stasya Sasti Sandam Dayam Stutam Stasya Sasti Sandam Dayam Stutam Stasya Sasti Sandam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Dayam Stutam Stasya Sasti Sanda Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Bande Gurushi Charanarabindam Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Yoravani Pracharine Nivishesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskajade Zatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bola Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Bola Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Tagora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Tagora Hari Bol, Tagora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Tagora Hari Bol, Tagora Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Haribo, Nitagora, Haribo, Nitagora, Haribo, Haribo, Go Haribo, Nitagora, Haribo, Nitagora, Premanandi ki jai. Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Gopala Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Shri Rupa Sri Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Rupa Sri Sanatan Bhattaraguna Hari Guru Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Premanandi Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parvajika Chasta Tirasatara Shri Shri Maha's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parvajika Chasta Tirasatara Shri Shri Maha's Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samavela Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premananda Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai.
Hiranyakashi Purvashaha Shilatan Kanakalaye Shilatan Hito Nashima Parato Nashima Yato yato yami tato nishima Boher nishima hidaye nashima Narashinhamadim sharanam prapade Tavakara kamala bare nakham Adbhuta shingha Dalita liranakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita narahari rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Nishingadev Jaya Nishingadev Jaya Lakshmi Narashima Jaya Lakshmi Narashima Lakshmi Narashima Jaya Lakshmi Narashima Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada,
Jai Prabhupada,
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada.
Shingadev Bhagavan ki Jai. Prindaye Tulsi Devai, Priyaye Keshavaya Cha, Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satiratai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devai, Priyaye Keshavaya Cha, Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satiratai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devai, Priyaye Keshavaya Cha, Vishnu Bhakti Pradi Devi Satiratai Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Devi Maharani ki Jai.
Krishna Priyasi Namo Namo
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Radha Krishna Shiva Pavo Ayobi Lasi
Radha Krishna Deva Pava Hey Avilasi.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha.
Tomaro Sharanala Taravancha Purna
Tomara Saranaloy Taravacha Purna Hoy.
Kripa Kori Karatore Vrindavana Vasi
Kripakari Karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Tumi Kripa Kori Karatore Vrindavana Vasi
Akari Karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Namo Namo Morai Yavilas Velat Kunje Yoga
Abhi
sadoi Jogala Rupa Rasi
Nayane Nivada Nayasi
Aminayane Heri Bosadoi Jogala Rupa Rasi
Aminayane Heri Masada Nayasi
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo Tulasi
Krishna Vyasi Namo Namah
Danadharo Shakirayanu Katakaro
Dara Sakira Anugata Koro
Sevayadi Kodo Diye Koro Nijo Dasi
Eva Ori Korore Lorone Janase
Vina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namorao
Nina Krishna Dastiko Eye Namora
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kanisha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Gani Chappa Pani Brahmahatadi Kani Cha Tani Tani Brahmashanti Badakshana Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kanisha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Gani Chappa Pani Brahmahatadi Kani Cha Tani Tani Brahmashanti Badakshana Pade Pade
Kani Kani Sapapani Brahmatari Kanisha Tani Tani Pranashanti Pradakshina Pade Pade
Yani Kani Cha Babani Brahma Tadi Kani Cha Tani Tani Prana Santi Vadakshana Bade Bade
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Oh Rama Rama Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Hey, I go Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaur Hari Bol.
Tagora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Tagora Hari Bol. Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai, Vrindaye Tulsi Deva Priyaye Keshavasya cha, Vishnu Bhakti Prati Devi Satyavata Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Deva Priyaye Keshavasya cha, Vishnu Bhakti Prati Devi Satyavata Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulsi Deva Priyaye Keshavasya cha, Vishnu Bhakti Prati Devi Satyavata Namo Namaha. Vrinda Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Oh, Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in the pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the cowherd damsels of Braja. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise may always swim in love of Shri Shri Radha and Govinda Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Siksastakam Ki Jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Baba Mahadavagni Nivapanam Shairakairabhya Chandrika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipradam Purnam Ritasvadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Saktis
Sundari Kavitamba Jagadisha Kamai Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Ainandatan Jakim Karam Kaditamma Visame Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tamapada Pankajastita Duli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudhari Adanam Gadikada Vidaya Gira Ulakaya Nijitamba Pukada Tavanam Grahmane Bhavisati Juga Itam Ninishena Shakusa Pravrisa Itam Sunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Asli Shavapa Daratam Pinastuma Adarshanath Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatava Vidadatulam Pato Matrana Tastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Kristakam Ki. Namo Mahavrana Krishna, Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratveshu. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or a period of birth and death. The Sankirtan movement is the primary addiction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we always are anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen to this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death, and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord,
When will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs in my body stand on end at the recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Siksastakam ki. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy names of the Lord that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the about the glories of the holy name. 10. Do not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema! Now, let us offer a most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripasindubhyebhacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janma yasya yato niviyad itaratas chartesu avigyaswarat.
Janma yasya yatam vayaditaratas chartesu avigyaswarat.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha.
Tejo Varimridam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mesha.
Damna Svena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
Dhamna Svena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of
I
Godhead.
offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth,
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all causes,
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all
He
manifestations,
is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
and he is independent because there's no other cause behind him.
And he is independent because there's no other cause behind him.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is he only who first imparted Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji,
the original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion,
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
as one is bewildered by the illusory representations
As one is bewildered by the illusory representations
of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
of water seen with fire, land seen with water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universes,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual, although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri
who is
Krishna,
eternally existent in the transcendental abode,
who is eternally existent in the transcendental
which is
abode,
forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
which is forever free from the illusory representation of the material world.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Dharma projita kaitravulcha,
Dharma prujita kaitavutra,
paramo nirmatsaranam satam,
paramo nirmasaranam satam,
vedyam vastavam atravastu,
vedyam vastavam astravastu,
shivadam tapa trayon mulanam.
shivadam tapo trayamulanam,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni
Kim Vaparer Ishwaraha,
Kim Vaparer
Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra,
Sadyo Rudya Varudyate
Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat,
Kritivi Shushushubhistakyanat,
completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are material
This
motivated.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavata Purana propounds a high truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The high truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity,
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity.
is sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other scripture?
What is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam,
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Sukha mukhad mridadrav sankhitam,
pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Pibata Bhagavatam rasamanayam,
muhur ahos rasika bhuvibhavukaha.
Muraho rasika bhuvibavuka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful men relish Srimad
the
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desired true Vedic
the
literatures.
mature fruit, the desired tree of Vedic literature.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadev Goswami.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all,
although its nectarian juice was also relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swakata Krishna,
Shambhatam Swakata Krishna,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Hridyantaksto hi Bhadrani,
Yam Kastoya Bhadrani,
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from Vedic
or
literature,
to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him,
is itself righteous activity.
itself.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And for one who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling within everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend
acts as best wishing friend,
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages with hearing him.
Nasta presu bhadresu
Nasta prayesha bhadreshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
nityam bhagavata sevaya
bhagavati uttamasloke
bhagavati uttamashloki
bhaktir bhavati naistiki.
bhakti bhavati nasti.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
as he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the
and
devotees,
from the
he
devotees.
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
He becomes fixed in his devotional service.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye
amalobhadayascha
cheta etar anavidam
cetaitar
stitvam
anavidam
sattve prasidati.
sitam sattve prasidati.
By development of devotional service
By development of devotional service
of the Lord, and by development of devotion, one becomes fixed, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance.
one becomes free from the modes of passion and ignorance,
And thus, material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasana manaso
Bhagavat Bhakti Yogataha
Bhagavat Bhakti Yoga
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness,
the candidate remains steady in his position of pure
becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened by devotional service,
and understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis,
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya,
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya,
Siyante Jasya Karmani,
Chiyante Sachakarmat,
Justa Evat Manishware.
Grutstaivad Manishwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga severs the hard of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables us to come at once to the stage of Samshaya Samagram,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness,
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna, from his voice in Krishna consciousness,
one can understand the science of Krishna.
one can understand the science of Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18, verse number 23. Aham hi pristo yayamanao bhavadbir
Aham ispristo yamano bhavati
achaksha atma vagamo choyavan
achaksha adma vagamo trayavam
nabha patant atma samam patatrinas
nabha patanchadma samam patatriyanas
tata samam vishnu gatim vipaschitaha.
tata samam vishnu gatim vipachitaha.
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
O rishis, who are as powerfully pure as the sun, I shall try to describe to you the transcendental pastimes of Vishnu as far as my knowledge is concerned. As the birds fly in the sky, as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Absolute Truth is unlimited. No living being can know about the unlimited by his limited capacity. The Lord is impersonal, personal, and localized. The Lord is impersonal, personal, and localized. By his impersonal feature, he is all-pervading, Brahman. By his localized feature, he is present in everyone's heart. As the Supreme Soul, and by his ultimate personal feature, he is the object of transcendental loving service by his fortunate associates, the pure devotees. The pastimes of the Lord in different features can only be estimated partly by the great learned devotees. So Srila Sutta Goswami has rightly taken this position in describing the pastimes of the Lord as far as he has realized. Factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself, and his learned devotee also can describe him as far as the Lord gives him the power of description. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. This is a statement of the humility of a devotee. A devotee, as opposed to a Mayavadi or an impersonalist or a demon, does not assume that he or she can know everything about Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is unlimited, Ananta. There's no limit to his glories, his pastimes, everything about him. There's no limit to it. So we are limited. Even if we're liberated, we're still limited because we're only a part and parcel of the Lord. We're not the complete Lord. So when we hear a statement like this which says that factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself. That's an important statement because this should ring a big bell in our mind. Ding! Bhagavad Gita is Krishna speaking about himself. So what would be better than that? If you want to know who Krishna is, you must read. And not just read, you must hear from bona fide devotees like Srila Prabhupada this Bhagavad Gita, because this is Krishna speaking about himself. Who knows Krishna better than Krishna himself? So here it says, factually, only the Lord himself can describe himself. And his learned devotee also can describe him as far as the Lord gives him the power of description. So any ability that we have is coming from Krishna. This is also stated. Rasoham absukonteya pravasmi sasisurya pranavas arvavedesu vedesmi puruksha para. So in the 7th chapter, 8th verse, this is an interesting statement by the Lord. He says, Rasoham absukonte, I'm the taste of water. And Pavasmi Sasisurya, the light of the sun and the moon. And then he says, Pranavas Sarva Vedesu, and I am the syllable Om in all the Vedic literatures. And Sabde Ke Purusham Nrisu, I am the sound in ether and ability in man. So therefore, Sutta Goswami says that, and so the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. So this is a correct statement that we are part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, it's impossible for us to know everything about Krishna, but we can know the main things. And that is summarized somewhat in this verse and purport, but I want to go deeper into the subject today. So, Prabhupada says that, see, if you hear Bhagavad Gita from a pure devotee, and the purest devotee we know in our direct experience is Srila Prabhupada. That's why we're studying his translations and his purports to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and so forth. Well, there's a certain thing about connecting, just like an electrician. He knows how to connect things so the flow of electricity goes unimpeded. And Prabhupada knows how to connect things so the flow of realization of Krishna is connected. Everything is connected to Krishna because Krishna is everything. Everything is not Krishna, but Krishna is everything because everything is made of Krishna's energy. So this, we have to understand what that means, and today we're going to go deeper into that subject. So Prabhupada says, by cultivating these limbs of knowledge, so there are 20 limbs of knowledge, Manitvam, Adamitvam, Himsa Santar Arjavam, so Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, 8th to 12th verse. So by cultivating these limbs of knowledge, one attains self-realization. In other words, one is elevated from mundane knowledge of the kshetra, meaning the field of activity, the material nature and the body, to spiritual knowledge of the kshetragya, the knower of the field. So material science and material philosophy is only concerned with the kshetra, the 24 elements. And there are gross elements and there are subtle elements. So they get into the subtle elements also, but a very sketchy way. And that's the limit of their knowledge. But wait a minute, there's a whole other realm of knowledge, and that's called spiritual knowledge. They ignore that completely. Therefore, anyone who is educated today in schools is cursed. The correct word is cursed, to remain incomplete in everything they do in their life. Every relationship, every accomplishment, it'll all be for naught. Now, we have an example right in front of our eyes. We have President Trump. Now, President Trump did a lot of materially amazing things. But it was all nullified by a little virus and all these people that hate him. So you see, that is the nature of the material world. If you work with only material knowledge, and what is material knowledge? You need economic development so you can have sustained sense gratification. That's what it is right there. That's the whole purpose of going to college and getting a good education and passing your SAT test and all that stuff. It's to make money so you can have sustained sense gratification. But what is the outcome of that? Zero. It's all going to be taken away from you, and you start all over again. You can't keep any of it. There was one king, Muslim king in Delhi, and when he was going to die, he had a special casket made with 2 holes in it. Everyone said, well, I mean, the whole purpose of the casket is to protect the body from insects and other things so they don't eat the body. Why do you want 2 holes in it? He said, when I die, and you take the hearse with the horse and buggy with my casket, I want to have 2 holes in it. So I want them to stick my arms into the outside of the hole so people see when I'm dead, I went with nothing in my hands. So what did the Muslims do? They go, Allahu Akbar, and they hold their hands out like this. So why are they holding their hands out there? Because they want something from God, you see. So he's saying, I want you to see my hands when I'm dead, that I have nothing in my hands. I went with nothing. See, he was a very smart man. Of course, nobody got the message. They thought he was crazy, you know. You don't want to have a hole in the casket. The bugs will come in and eat your body. But the bugs will come in and eat your body anyway. They'll come in from your body itself, right? So anyway, here we see that this material knowledge, it's a curse, because what will happen with material knowledge? You'll be struggling the rest of your life. Because there's a struggle for competition. Just like if you have a garden, you'll see there's a struggle of competition, because the bugs and the rabbits and the deer and viruses and mold, they're all fighting for the food. You have to protect your garden from all these things, and you can't do it completely. Every farmer knows they're going to lose between 5 and 10% of their crop to animals, to insects, or they could lose the whole crop to drought or to disease. So therefore, there's a struggle for existence. And by getting this only material knowledge, you go right into the throes of that struggle for existence without getting out. The whole life you're just struggling. You have to pay the bills. You have somebody gets sick, and then there's an accident, and your house blows up because the propane tank was leaking, or because there's a gas leak in the neighborhood. You know, every day there's something going wrong, and there's a struggle. You see, that's what material knowledge curses you to stay in the struggle and never get out of it. Right up to the moment of death, you're struggling. Who's going to get the inheritance? I can't trust this son. The second son's okay. My daughter, she's a nonsense. She married this drug dealer. And, you know, it's a mess. All the time, there's a struggle. So, Prabhupada explains here, he says that we have previously established that the word Kshetragya implies both the living entity and the supreme Brahman, or Krishna. Sometimes material nature, or Prakriti, is referred to as Brahman. The reason being that Brahman is the cause of the material nature. In one sense, a cause and its effect are identical, but Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of Brahman. The Lord impregnates Brahman in the form of the material nature with the seed of Brahman known as the Jiva. So this word Brahman can mean several different things, or 3 or 4 different things according to the context. The real meaning of Brahman is Krishna. He's the source of everything, the Brahma Jyoti, the Paramatma, the material nature, the Jivatmas, everything. So he's the supreme Brahman. But then sometimes the material nature, the entire material nature, the Mahatattva, is referred to as Brahman. And sometimes the Jiva is referred to as Brahman. Okay? So you have to understand the word Brahman in the context that it's used. See, this is one of the principles of Sanskrit. You learn the alphabet, then you learn grammar, and then you learn context. The context is very important. It's as important as the letters and as important as the grammar. Because you can make a major mistake by misinterpreting the context. Context means what is being spoken of at a particular time in a particular place, and it can refer backwards to things that have already been discussed. So you have to be able to understand the context. Okay, so here it says, in one sense, a cause and its effect are identical, but Lord Krishna is the ultimate source of Brahman. The Lord impregnates Brahman in the form of the material nature with the seed of Brahman known as the Jiva. So you see, right there, explains that Brahman can refer to the Lord himself, his effulgence, the Jiva, or the material nature. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mama yonir mahat brahma, tasman garbam dadamyaham, sambhava sarvabhutanam, tato bhavati bharata. So this is Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter, 3rd verse. The total material substance called Brahman. So here Brahman is referring to Mahatattva, the total material substance, right? Is the source of birth. And it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O Skyan of Bharata. So right there is the defeat of all material knowledge. The people that think there's only matter, there's nothing else, right there is defeated. Because in this verse, 3 things are explained by Krishna. One is the total material substance, the Mahatattva, which is called Brahman. And it's the source of birth in the material world. But Krishna says, it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings. So the only reason the material energy looks animated is because Krishna impregnates the other Brahman, called the Jiva, into the material nature, which is also called Brahman. Right? And Krishna is also Brahman. He's the supreme Brahman. Right? And there's also the Brahma Jyoti. Right? So we see we need to understand context just as much as the alphabet, the grammar, the meanings of the words, etc. This verse explains the famous saying, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. Okay, now this is an electrical connection now. Prabhupada just connected this verse to the Vedic verse, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma, which is one of the most misinterpreted verses by the Mayavadis. So now he's defeating the Mayavadis just by doing this. See, only a pure devotee can do this. No common, mundane scholar is able to do this. And that's because they have misconceptions. They have material desires. Therefore, they cannot explain things correctly. So Prabhupada is like the supreme electrician. He's connecting everything. Now he's going to connect different verses of the Bhagavad Gita to verses from the Vedas, to and all that to Krishna. Only he can do that. Just like we have a machine downstairs. It's called a steamer convection oven. And I ordered it because they have one that's single phase, 120 volt. So we got the machine. It's down there. You can see it in the hallway. But it says triple phase 240 watt. Now, I called him. I said, "What's going on here, man? I ordered single phase. You know, if you send me a triple phase, it's going to cost us $4,000 or $5,000 to convert our electrical box to triple phase 240 volt." They said, "No. If you have an electrician, he can internally adjust it to be single phase 120 volt." I said, "What?" He said, "Yes," and they sent me the plans. Now I looked at the plan. You have to be a professional electrician to understand it. because there's so many wires in it, and you have to reconfigure all the wires, right? So here we see one single machine can go from triple phase to a single phase. You don't need a second machine. They figured this out because their company has been around a long time, that some people want triple phase, some people want single phase. So instead of making two different machines, they made one machine, but you have to have an expert electrician who can change the wires and make it into a single phase. So in this way, we see that Prabhupada is a transcendental electrician. He wants the natural flow of Krishna Katha and Krishna Tattva to show you that it's going through all the different verses of the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedanta Sutra and the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's all talking about the same thing, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, if you deal with these half-baked scholars, you call them, just like they say, Bir Hakim Khatrejan, and half doctor is no doctor, right? So if you deal with these half-baked, half-educated people, you don't see the flow of the electricity. Going from Krishna through everything right up to Srimad Bhagavatam. You don't see it. But when you connect to Prabhupada, Prabhupada knows how to connect everything, because everything is connected to Krishna. The only reason we think things are not connected to Krishna is because we've been dumbed down by modern education and been dumbed down by impersonalists and other people who hate Krishna, and therefore they've purposely misinterpreted the Shastras. So here Prabhupada says, one second. He says, this verse explains the famous saying, Sarvam Klavidam Brahma, from the Upanishads, meaning everything is Brahman. In other words, the Supreme Brahman, Lord Krishna, is identical with both the Jiva and Prakriti in that they are all Brahman. Thus, in one sense, the Vaishnavas are pure monists. Wait a minute. That means that we outdid the Mayavadis. We're more oneness than they are. You say. Now, this is amazing. Only Prabhupada could do this because he's a pure devotee and he understands, after many, many, let's say, lifetimes, he understands perfectly the Shastra. And without connection to Prabhupada, we are lost. We'll make so many false assumptions by reading the Shastra. So he says, thus, in one sense, the Vaishnavas are pure monists. Previously, we deliberated upon another verse from the Bhagavad Gita 9:10. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetananena kontya jagat viparipartate. So now he's connecting Bhagavad Gita 14:3 to the famous Mahavaikya of the monists of the Mayavadis called Savam Klavidam Brahma from the Upanishads. Now he's coming back to Bhagavad Gita, connecting the previous two to this third verse. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam 9:10. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Prabhupada says, this Gita verse under discussion, 14.3, gives a clearer understanding of the other verse, 9.10. Now, wait a minute. Could you have figured this out? How many years have you been reading Bhagavad Gita? Did you know that 9.10 is connected to 14.3? No. Well, I have to tell the truth. I didn't either. You see, so this is why we have to hear from a pure devotee. You know, we have to hear from Prabhupada every day. Because every day we're going to discover something new. Something that we thought we knew, but we don't know it. You see, this is our problem. We don't know everything, and we have to have the same humility as Sutta Goswami. He says, as birds fly in the sky as far as their capacity allows, so do the learned devotees describe the Lord as far as their realization allows. These are very significant statements. Very, very significant statements. Now, I'm giving an example how we we got our Bhakti Shastri by studying, or we took the Bhakti Shastri course and studied Bhagavad Gita. But did you know that verse 9:10 is connected to 14:3, and both of them are connected to Sarvam Klavidam Brahman? Oh, you didn't know that. Did they teach you that in Bhakti Shastri class? You see, this is the problem. We should never think we understand. There's so many things that are going to be revealed to us little by little as we become more and more purified, more and more surrendered to the service of the Lord. So that's not all. Now Prabhupada says, to shed more light on the meaning of the Upanishadic aphorism, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma, we cite a verse from the Vishnu Purana. Now, he went from the Upanishad to Bhagavad Gita, and then again the Bhagavad Gita, and now he's going to the Upanishad. And then now he's going to the, again, to the Upanishads. And he's in another verse in the Puranas. Now he's going to the Vishnu Purana. 122:56. Esa desa stitasya agnir josna vistarini yata parasya brahmana saktis tatedam akilam jagat. Now I've read this verse many times. I've memorized it sometimes. I forgot it sometimes. I came back and memorized it again. But I never knew any of these things that Prabhupada's talking about right now. As fire radiates light all around, although remaining in one spot, similarly, the Supreme Brahman radiates energy everywhere, which is manifested as this material world. Now, Prabhupada continues. In their philosophical discussions, the Mayavadis deny the existence of the Supreme Lord's multifarious energies. Such substandard debates are indeed on the kindergarten level. Right here, he nullified Sankaracharya, Sarilak Bhashya, and all the speculations of the Mayavadis. Just nullified it right there. Mayavadis have a poor fund of knowledge and are thus prevented from understanding that the Supreme Brahman is full with 6 opulences. To save these poor Mayavadi impersonalists from philosophical impoverishment, Lord Krishna has mercifully instructed them in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Now, you see how the energy is flowing, the electricity is flowing, right? It went from 14:3 to Sarvam Klavidam Brahma to 9:10, and then to Ekadesa Stitas Yagnir, Josnas Vistarini Yata, to Purana, and now he's coming back to Bhagavad Gita again. Brahmanu, he says, he says, 7:19, he says, Bahanam janmanamante gyanavam mam prapadyante vasudeva samamiti samahatma sudurmalapa. I mean, you all know this verse, you probably all can recite it, right? But did you know it's connected to Sarvam Klavidam Brahma, to Ekadesa Stitas Yagnir, to Mayadakshina Prakriti, and to Mahayonir, Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma. Did you know that? Did you know that, Prabhu? Did you know that? You see, did you know that, Prabhu? I didn't know it either, right? But we're learning it now. As the saying goes, a tethered cow goes as far as the rope. See how poetic Prabhupada is. Now he's bringing in an English proverb. Now what does this mean? It means a cow that's tied up can only reach as far as the length of the rope goes. It can't go beyond it, right? Similarly, one who uses the inductive method to search for ultimate knowledge will fail. Now, he just crushed the Mayavadis again. They only use deductive knowledge, deductive process. They don't use, they only use the inductive process, just like the scientists do. If you know the difference between inductive and deductive, I don't know. I mean, Shasta knows the difference. You want to explain the difference between inductive and deductive? Come over here and explain. This is what we study in the children's class. Actually, children's class is the advanced class. Everyone says, oh, I don't have to go to children's class. So I know all that stuff. Believe me, you don't know anything. We don't know anything.
So the inductive method of understanding knowledge is basically what they now call the scientific method. So you begin with a guess, and then you use your imperfect senses to come up with
Observation. Right?
observations to support your guess.
Observation and experiment.
Yeah.
Right. That's the
then-
inductive process.
Yeah. The deductive process of understanding knowledge,
The correct deductive, the
Yeah.
spiritual
the
deductive.
spiritual deductive process, is where you begin from the Vedic truths or the Vedic aphorisms, and you deduct based on that knowledge.
Yeah, exactly right. So, for example, I'll give you one example. Jagdish Chandra Bose, most famous scientist in India, right? First Indian to ever get a Nobel Prize. So, no one else ever thought of this. He showed that human beings, animals, plants, some metals, all have the same reaction to stimuluses. And this is brilliant. And that means that the real meaning of that is that they all have a soul. They're not actually dead. Like the Christian church says, animals don't have a soul. And of course, plants. If animals don't have it, plants don't have them either, right? He proves that they all have souls, and even some metals and rocks and things like that. He proved it scientifically with the experiment. Now, why no one else ever tried to experiment like that, and he did? Because he had access to Vedic knowledge. And he started from the a priori self-evident truths of the Vedas. Prabhupada says that is real scientific experimentation. You begin with the Vedic knowledge and you deduct from it. See, so you use a deductive. In other words, for example, you say, man is mortal. Now you can deduct things. I know this guy named John. Therefore, John is mortal because he's a man. Now, is that true or false? You see? So you didn't have to experiment. You started with something that's true, and then you deduct from it. Deduct means you understand that if all men are mortal, John is a man. That's a deduction. Therefore, John must be mortal. There it is, right there. You didn't need to experiment. So the Vedic process of knowledge is deductive knowledge. You begin from the truths of the Vedas. Now, material deduction is you get a guess, and then you deduct from it. You say, I see a duck walk. But there's this idiot that lives in my neighborhood who walks just like a duck. Therefore, he must be a duck. So he goes and asks. So he goes and talks to the guy. He said, "Can you go quack, quack for me?" He said, "What are you, crazy or what? What do you mean?" But I think you're a duck because you look like a duck. You know, I'm using deductive. No, he said, that's not deductive. That's deductive. So you see, they begin with a hunch, a guess, and they try and deduct. Well, it doesn't go very far, right? Because right away they'll see that it doesn't explain reality, right? The neighbor is not a duck, even though he walks like a duck, right? So, but on the other hand, if you begin from the self-evident truths of the Vedas, then you'll be able to deduct, and everything you deduct, you'll see actually exists. Okay, so Prabhupada says here that, as the saying goes, I'm going to be a little long today because this is 1st of January, so we should have some wisdom on the 1st of January that will guide us through all the vicissitudes, all the changes, surprises, upstarts, and everything in 2021. I don't want to say Happy New Year. Just like we all said, Happy New Year 2020. Look what happened. So if I say Happy New Year, it doesn't really mean anything, right? But if we begin with new realizations of the Bhagavad Gita, that could mean something in this new year, right? Okay, so a tethered cow goes as far as the rope. Similarly, one who uses the inductive method to search for ultimate knowledge will fail. That means everything you're learning in elementary to graduate school, it's going to fail. You don't believe me? Just look at history. In history, you'll see all these great philosophers and scientists and politicians, they all failed. They all died, and everything they did was basically zero. Okay, so his attempt is futile because one cannot know the supramundane with a mundane mind. Complete comprehension of absolute truth is impossible with an unholy, demoniac mind. When one is possessed of a demoniac mentality that tries to reduce the supremely omnipotent personality of Godhead to impersonal Brahman, all so-called philosophical debates will fail to discover the realm of absolute knowledge or the truth about the non-dual substance. Vaishnavas alone are eligible to cultivate such knowledge. Of course, not all the impersonalists are demoniac. Whoa, he just turned the corner again. Not all impersonalists are demoniac, and we've said that before. We've said that there are many impersonalists who are demons and atheists. But there are some bona fide impersonalists, and we gave examples like the Kumara and Sutta Goswami and so forth. So here it says, Parikshit Maharaj also. It says, but not all impersonalists are demonic. As soon as an impersonalist realizes that the absolute truth is a person endowed with all transcendental qualities, he immediately begins to serve him. This is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10, which states, now we're going to one of the most famous verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Atma Rama verse, that I have to frankly say I have not understood. I've read it every once in a while. Lord Chaitanya gives, 60 plus interpretations of it. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the greatest scholar of all time in India, who's an incarnation of Brihaspati, the head priest of the Devas, he could only give 9 explanations of it. Lord Chaitanya gives over 60, right? But reading all those things, I always have been puzzled about what is this verse saying, although it sounds simple. It says, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. That's the translation of the verse. So, now he's connected this verse to Bahanam Janmanamante, to Sarvam Klavidam Brahma, to Ekadesa Stitas Yagnir, to Maya Dakshina Prakriti, to Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma. So you see Prabhupada is number one electrician. Yeah.
It seems like you can connect, if you think deeply, you can connect all the verses in one verse. I mean, it means that each verse is complete.
Each verse is pointing to the same absolute
each
truth.
Verse is complete because Krishna is absolute. So each verse, each statement is complete.
Yeah, one time there's this Professor Shenik, he was a French guy. He had a meeting with Prabhupada in Paris. After he came out of the meeting, he said, your guru is all wrong, he doesn't understand anything at all. And the devotee said, well, why is that? Why do you say that? He said, every verse in Bhagavad Gita points to Krishna. I don't agree with that. You see, this guy's a scholar, right? By the way, he couldn't read Sanskrit. He could only read the transliteration of Sanskrit, right? He was a nonsense guy. I knew him. And, he was, and when Prabhupada was told what he said, now he has understood my mission. To connect everything to Krishna. Everything is connected to Krishna. It's just the Mayavadi's got it all scrambled. And it takes years. Once you scramble something, it takes years to figure it out and put it back the way it should be. Go ahead.
No, I just want to make that point.
Yeah.
That actually, each verse is complete in the philosophically. Each verse, especially in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam too, that the one verse can explain the whole philosophy. See, like the first verse for the Janmasya Jata, everything is there.
Yes.
And then each verse actually is complete.
Haribol. I have not realized that yet, but I trust what you're saying is true. So now he connects this Atmarama verse, which is just about one of the most famous verses in the whole Bhagavatam, to all these other verses. And Prabhupada says, it is rare to find that great soul who is attracted by the Lord's transcendental qualities and thus surrenders to him. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I got a phone call from someone the other day who is a Ritvik. But he's a good friend of mine. He's a very good friend of mine. And he always calls me up every once in a while. And he comes to the temple every once in a while, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. But he's a nice man, right? But he became a Ritvik. So I told him, Prabhu, I said, look, don't you realize you're wasting your time? You're going from one project to another to make money. And this is a waste of time. I said, you're always talking about Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Well, why don't you surrender completely to Prabhupada? Give up all this nonsense that you're doing and just preach and have faith that Krishna will take care of you. So Prabhu, I said, don't speak so loudly. My wife is listening. I don't want her to hear this because, I really want to do that, but I can't say that in front of her because she'll get all upset. And he said, well, I really want to do that. I said, well, then why don't you do it? Well, you know how it is. We still got some kids, and it's not that easy. I said, yes, it is that easy. He said, well, I am trying to preach. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I sometimes I invite some people over and I preach to them. And there's one guy who's really interested now, and I'm teaching him the Bhagavad Gita, and he's really, really interested. And he even chants one round. I said, Prabhu, I said, you've become a guru. Don't say that. Don't say that. No, I don't want to hear that. I said, but that's what guru is. No, I don't want to hear it. Because he's a Ritvik. See, he said, only Prabhupada is a guru. I said, you've become a guru. He said, no, stop saying that. I don't want to hear that. You see, they can't, because it's a false philosophy, right? But they can't stop themselves from acting like a guru. And I explained to him, if anyone who repeats the words of Krishna and acharyas correctly is a guru. And they don't want to hear that word. They say, only Prabhupada is a guru. You see how crazy, absolutely crazy people are. Even the ones that chant Hare Krishna, as long as they have a misconception in their mind, they're crazy. So here it says, it is rare to find that great soul who is attracted by the Lord's transcendental qualities and thus surrenders to him. But that's the whole point. Sharanam, complete surrender. That's what Prabhupada did. He completely surrendered. That's what all of us did when we first joined the movement in the early years. We had to completely surrender, not do anything else, but just preach and chant and dance and so forth. Prabhupada said this dancing is also scientific. The only person who can surrender to the Supreme Lord is one who does not attempt to rob him of his personality, but who views the material nature as a transformation of his multifarious energies. Thus the Mayavadis can never be called Mahatmas or great souls. Only when they realize that the non-dual absolute truth is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full with 6 opulence, can they be called Mahatmas. Vaishnava Mahatmas have explained the aphorism Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. In this manner, the philosophical school known as Vasistadvaita propounds the idea that the Supreme Lord eternally exists with his two principal potencies, the Chit Shakti, the spiritual potency, and the Achit Shakti, or material potency. Now Prabhupada is going further. He's connecting Ramanujacharya to the Sarvam Klavidam Brahma that was misinterpreted by the Mayavadis, but now he's giving Sankaracharya's explanation of it, which is the Vaishnava explanation, and he's connecting that to Atmarama verse, to Bahanam Janmanam Ante 7:19, to Ekadesa Stitasya Agnir, the Vishnu Purana, to Maya Dakshena Prakriti, 9:10 Bhagavad Gita, and to Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma 14:3. So I'm going to stop right there. This goes on. There are more connections coming. We can discuss them tomorrow. But see, this is the free flow of the electricity, unimpeded. Unimpeded. Only an expert can do it. Just like only an expert can reconfigure the wires of our machine downstairs from 3-phase to 1-phase, right? Only Prabhupada can connect everything to Krishna because he's a pure devotee. Hari Bol. All glories to Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions?
As we see, as you were explaining, and as we see Prabhupada's, because right now we see everything each verse is
We see everything separated.
and then there is still, I guess, lack of clarity on how all the connections happen, and then the big picture is not there.
Yes.
I think whereas Prabhupada, for him, he was able to see everything from the top down.
If you come to class every day, you get the big picture. But it takes time because the big picture is really big.
Yes.
You know, it's the supreme absolute truth. It's not a trifling thing. It's really big. So we have to regularly hear. And every day, something new is going to appear in our mind that we didn't realize before. We know it all, but we didn't realize it. Yeah.
We're blessed.
But he said only by his causeless mercy, actually, we can understand.
Yes. But
By hearing, and then he reciprocates. Right? He reciprocates.
this person is coming every day to the class. Just like when Prabhupada met his guru in Vrindavan, I think it was 1933. There was an evening darshan going on in a room, and many of the God brothers were there. And then someone interrupted it before Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati spoke, and he said, "We all can have this rare parikram tonight of the 7 major temples of Vrindavan. Who's up for it to come and go from temple to temple during Aarti time?" So almost everybody got up and walked out. But Prabhupada didn't walk out, and maybe 2 or 3 sannyasis stayed. And Bhaktisiddhanta looked at Prabhupada and said, "This boy is very interested in hearing, therefore I shall instruct him." So we should be really anxious to hear on a regular basis.
And Krishna reciprocates.
And it reciprocates. Yeah. Haribol.
That's why he said, "Ye tamam prapadyante."
Yeah.
Down to
As you surrender, I reveal.
Orally,
Yes.
he revealed himself.
Yeah.
Mike.
How is dancing scientific?
Yes.
You want to know?
Just explain it.
Well, there's this famous guy called Arthur Murray in America. He used to, this is the 1940s and 50s and 60s. He used to teach ballroom dancing. So if you want to know, you have to come and take the course.
Don't you keep on dancing?
We'll teach you the Prabhupada 2-step. That's the basis of the science right there. The Prabhupada 2-step.
Swami steps, you call it?
Yeah.
Swami steps.
We'll teach you. You have to surrender completely, and then we'll teach you. Yeah. Surrender to hearing regularly, then you'll learn how to dance scientifically. Haribol, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The payment for learning is coming regularly to the class. Then you will learn how dancing is scientific. No other way. You have to pay for it, Prabhu.